All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle one of the fastest, most satisfying veggies you can possibly grow. But here's the catch. It's also one of the most unforgiving. So consider this your guide to taking all the guesswork out of growing radishes and turning it into a super simple, totally reliable 30-day challenge. It all kicks off with this little piece of wisdom. That's the taste of waiting too long. Just imagine a grandmother saying that to her 10-year-old grandson right after he bites into his very first harvest. Man, what a powerful line, right? It just cuts straight to the core of what growing radishes is all about. And yeah, this is the story behind that quote. Picture it. You're 10 years old, you've planted your very first row of seeds, you're watering them, but then, summer kicks in. There's baseball, fishing, and you kind of forget about them. When you finally remember and go pull one out, it's massive, like the size of a golf ball. But then you take a bite, and it tells you everything you need to know. It's woody, it's tough, it's bitter. That very first failure, that's what teaches you the most important lesson of all. So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Radishes are basically a root vegetable on a timer. The clock starts ticking the second you plant them. Think about a tomato, right? It just gets better and better with a few extra days on the vine. A radish? Nope. It has this super specific, non-negotiable harvest window. If you miss it, even by a little, all that work you put in is, well, it's for nothing.
Okay, first things first. Groundwork for greatness. Look, getting that perfect, snappy crunch isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's all about setting the stage for success before a single seed even touches the dirt. So step one is just picking the right player for the right season. It's that simple. If you want a super fast harvest in the cool weather of spring, you're going to want something like a cherry bell. But if you're planting in the heat of summer, you need a variety that can handle it. And for a fall crop that you can actually store for a while, you're looking at winter types, like daikon. Just matching the variety to the season, that's your first big win.
Now this next point, it's totally non-negotiable. Your soil has to be friable, and that's just a fancy word that means it's nice and crumbly. If your soil is heavy clay or packed down hard, that little radish root just can't push its way through. And what you get are these sad, twisted, forked up things. You've got to give them an easy path to grow straight down. And this number right here, think of it as your secret weapon. This is the perfect pH range for your soil. If it's too acidic or too alkaline, it's like the plant can't eat the nutrients, no matter how much you try to feed it. Seriously, a simple soil test before you plant can save you a world of headaches later on. Okay, here's probably the biggest rookie mistake I see. People use high nitrogen fertilizer. And sure, you get these huge, gorgeous green leaves and you're thinking, wow, I'm nailing this. But what's really happening is the plant is putting all its energy into the leafy top and completely ignoring the root down below. It's all show and no go. That's why you stick with good old compost. It feeds the soil, which then feeds the whole plant, not just the leaves. All right, on to section 2, the path to perfect roots. So we've done all the prep work. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of sowing and thinning. This is where all that planning starts to pay off. The details here really, really matter. You're going to plant the seeds about a ½ inch deep. That's kind of the sweet spot, right? Deep enough so they don't dry out, but shallow enough so they can easily sprout. Space them about 1 inch apart to start. Don't worry, we'll deal with that later. And this is a big one. Sow a new row every week or 10 days. This is the secret to getting a steady supply of radishes all season long, instead of having 100 of them ready all at once. So once those little green sprouts pop up, 2 things become absolutely critical. First, water. You want the soil to be consistently moist, not a swamp. If it dries out, your radishes get woody and way too spicy. Second is thinning. And I know, this is the part that feels kind of cruel, but trust me, it's essential. You have to pull out some of the weaker seedlings so the strong ones have room to bulk up and form that nice round bulb. If they're overcrowded, nobody wins. They all just stay skinny. And here we are, the final and honestly the most crucial stage. All that prep, all that care, it all comes down to this one moment. Knowing exactly when to pull that radish out of the ground, that's the skill that separates a perfect crunchy bite from something that's only good for the compost pile. So how do you know when it's go time? It's actually a super simple 3-step check. First, check your calendar. You should know roughly when they're supposed to be ready. Second, check the crown. Just look right at the soil line. You'll start to see the top, the shoulder of the radish, swelling up and peeking out of the dirt. That's your big visual cue. And finally, check for crispness. Gently brush away some dirt and give it a little pinch. If it feels firm and solid, it's ready. If it feels kind of spongy, yeah, you've probably waited too long. Okay, let's just boil it all down. The pro tips are easy to remember. Consistent water, lots of sun, and planting in waves. And the big crop killers to avoid? Just as simple. Don't drown them right before you harvest because that makes them split. And remember what we said about high nitrogen fertilizer? That's what gets you all leaves and no bulb. Easy peasy. So this is probably the number one question people ask when their radishes don't work out. Why are my radishes all leaves and no bulb? You know the feeling, right? You get this huge, lush, beautiful canopy of green leaves. You're so excited, and then you pull one up and there's nothing but a skinny little taproot. So frustrating. What went wrong? Well, the answer is almost always one of two things. Either one, you use that high nitrogen fertilizer we talked about, which basically tells the plant, hey, just grow leaves. Or two, they just didn't get enough sun. Radishes are sun worshippers. They need at least 6 hours of good, direct sunlight to get the energy they need to form that nice, plump root. It's really that simple. Hey, to make all this timing stuff completely effortless, a simple tool like this is a total game changer. It just takes all the guesswork out of the planning. You can see exactly when to plant for your specific climate zone, both in spring and fall, and it keeps track of the maturity times for different varieties. It basically turns what feels like a complex schedule into a super simple, repeatable process. And that brings us right back to where we started, to that simple but powerful piece of wisdom from Grandma. Plant 'em, watch 'em, and don't get greedy. A radish waits for no one. I mean, that's pretty much this whole explainer summed up in one sentence, isn't it? It's about paying attention, being observant, and respecting that internal clock. Don't fall into that trap of waiting for them to get just a little bigger. A radish waits for no one. When you really think about it, that's the real lesson here, isn't it? In less than a month, this humble little seed teaches you a masterclass in just paying attention. It's this incredibly fast feedback loop on how well you're managing things, on your timing, and your discipline out there in the garden. Which kind of brings us to this final thought. Look, a row of radishes might seem like a small, almost insignificant thing in the grand scheme, but learning to take care of it well, to be faithful in that one small task, it builds a kind of discipline and watchfulness that you can apply to much, much bigger things in life. It's not really just about growing food, it's about the practice. So it leaves you with a question, right? What small thing will you choose to be faithful in today?